What is up, fuckers? Welcome back to the Rip Podcast. This is episode 5, maybe 6. I'm still not sure what episode it is, but I'm fairly sure it's 5. I'm your host, Extrigger, and I'm joined alongside the admin, Joycey. Say hello, buddy.
Hello, buddy.
Hello, buddy, indeed. Your second appearance on a podcast, this time with a much more affirmative role within the admin team, within the setup that is currently in place. Some would say you do the most, but we'll talk about that one later. And we're going to talk about some of the decisions that have gone on recently from the kind of suppose start of this split to where we are now. Obviously, a lot of recent things, and we'll definitely get onto the Dewey situation a little bit later, which is the thing that's kind of, and I suppose Pickles Man one as well, which has kind of blown the league by storm as being the two bands in the middle of
Excuse me, Mr. Jugger. I think I heard that you don't care about silver gold. Now you got bopped from it. That's somebody's words in the league the other day.
I mean, that's not true.
I know it's not. That's the part of the feeling.
What can you do? I think the first podcast had Callie on from Silver Gold. The second one had Wavy on from Silver Gold. Vigorous bias maybe, but no, they can fuck off. How about that? So where to start? Let's start with a change that we've had in the strictness of people getting these temporary bans from games and from Discord, which is kind of a new setup from where it was last split, where it's just kind of do whatever the fuck you want, and then if it gets too bad, see ya. Whereas now it's like, no, you're going to get little bans, little warnings, and then maybe that will accrue to something else. Obviously, only week 3, week 4 nearly. We're yet to see. So what was the reasoning behind that, and do you think it's working?
Okay, so we've always had behind the scenes stuff on in the Discord stuff. So people that have been around a long time will have known that people like Amy got kicked out of the community, never been allowed back. Appealed 4 times, never allowed, because they got to a point where there was so many breaches of conduct, I suppose, it wasn't feasible to keep doing it. So that was always apparent. That's always been a thing. Where we've clamped down this time is trying to be more aware of public appearances with VL. So let's say you clipped a game from VL and it went on viral on Twitter, for example. We'd expect that you'd show a level of professionalism from that. Now, that's not saying that what you do in your own place, your own time, your own Discords, we have to monitor. But when it has our name attached, we need to. Now, people laugh at amateur leagues and whatnot, but we do have plans to go bigger. We are in talks with sponsorships all the time, trying to get deals done. Now, let's look at it objectively. If you're a sponsor and you look at our stream one week and you see someone type something, as we got on week 2, I think it was, I think it was Sean who put KYS, and we don't do anything about it, that just sends the wrong message. And would you sponsor a league that did that? Probably not. Similarly, inside the chat, inside the Discord, where things go on, we try and monitor a little bit more now. We don't want witch hunting. There's still things going on, which is why we're trying to combat that with the staff stuff. And I'm aware that it may seem like we pick on individuals more than others. It's not intended. It's just when people are on, those people seem to be typing. But we are trying to just be stricter. And I mean, I get called. What did Looney put in the rankings for me? Like the highest one, censorship. I was the highest censorship. But like I said to other people, if you want to go in your own Discords and type what rhymes with goon and type your own little jokes, don't mind it. As soon as it becomes a VL thing, as soon as somebody can put our name to it, that's where it starts to worry us, and that's where we start taking a bit more action.
So the follow-up from that then is, first off, do you think it's working? Second off, do you think that it's maybe going too far? And then once you finish that question, there's kind of a third point to that, which is maybe a little bit more broader. So,
Okay.
do you think it's working? Do you think it's going too far?
I think it is working purely because the fact that people talk about it automatically assumes that people are going to abide or understand that if they do something wrong, they're going to get the same punishment. I think it's very, very open now that if anyone is deemed to be racist on stream or super offensive or bringing personal insults into conversation, that they're going to get a very similar punishment. And I'd love for anyone that, if that doesn't happen, to bring that straight to us and say, you've hurt someone else's game experience here by not dealing with that. Because I'm very much an advocate of, if so and so said something and we punish that, we should punish the same comment by someone else. And I don't care who that is. I just think it just needs to get punished the same way. That sort of changes a little bit when you go into more of the complicated punishments, which we'll get to in a little bit, I suppose. But especially like just general chat things, 100%.
Okay.
The second, what is too far? Now, we're not going to go and watch every single game and see if you mastery spam, and then say, right, that's one game ban, you shouldn't press your hotkey or whatever you've tagged it to. But similarly, if somebody sends us a screenshot and there's streams and streams of like effing and jeffing, swearing, and insults and whatnot aimed at a particular player, how can you say that's too far to deal with? Because essentially that's one person holding 9 other people hostage while they have their rant.
So it's what I more mean by going too far is, so I think the best example is in the series recently on LEC. It was Fnatic versus G2. There was all chat banter. Now, obviously, that all chat isn't public to the stream on Twitch because obviously this is full production. But both teams can see it, and it then got leaked of the G2 players actively trying to provoke the Fnatic players. Now, granted, no one was racist and no one told the other person to kill themselves, but there was the equivalent of a mastery spam or a XD question mark in all chat.
Yeah.
So how far are you gonna take it? Is it just you said the word that rhymes with goon, nearly got that one wrong, or you have put the 3 letters in? Is that gonna be that, or is it?
I think it does depend on certain aspects. For example, let's find a good example, right? So let's say it's a cup game, right? And it's WSA versus WSL. So the same teams that they're clearly friends because they interact daily, or whatever. And somebody goes for a flash play level 1, and straight away in the chat somebody just types Lee F 5 minutes or whatever. We're not going to punish that. That's clearly 2 teams who know each other, joking about. However, if that then led to a more serious offence, then we'd go back to the start and go, well, okay, that did start it. And I think that comes back to when Pro versus Elo Thieves, where he typed easy. And initially that was going to be a game ban because it was such a high tense affair. There were clearly drama between the 2 teams outside of just the game. And that sort of comment wasn't warranted. However, in that defense, that was provoked by the mastery spams, which is why it is less severe than what initially was going to be. Similarly, we still felt it was important to punish because he then provoked another response. You saw that knock-on thing. So with the Dewey case, had Dewey not streamed that game and both teams played that game and they had that banter, whatever little inside jokes they've got, and it never got leaked to the outside public, nobody would have ever picked up on it. Nobody would have gone, I'm going to go and watch every single game, see what everything gets typed, and punish. And I suppose it comes back to those, if you're in your own Discord, we're not going to punish it. What I would ask is if you're on a stream game, probably don't do the all chat stuff. There's difference between having a joke with it, knowing you can have a joke with it, and then doing something that's clearly going to be offensive. I think that's the important part of it.
So there's 2 points to that. The first thing is you as VL are the one streaming the games. Now, when Dewey's streaming it personally, and other people do it as well, that's a bit different. But say if it is Travis, why isn't he covering all chat or disabling all chat for the stream? If in one game when it's not streamed, saying easy is fine, but because it is streamed, it's suddenly not. It's like, that's one point.
What I'm saying, I'm not saying it's fine. What I'm saying is, if one team does report it, we would then follow it up as the same as if it was on stream. But that's sort of like me saying, if G2 and whoever else they did it with know it was a joke and it's not going to get leaked and not going to get reported, that won't get dealt with. But I can guarantee if that got reported as inappropriate, it would have been dealt with.
Okay.
And that's what I'm trying to say. If you say easy in game and it's one of your friends in bot lane when you do it, and then they message you afterwards and say, "Oh, I can't believe you've done that, but yeah, you got a good play or whatever." That's not the same as when Elo Thieves versus Pro, when it was like a 40-minute game, super close. There's things on outside the game with Val getting kicked and comments being made beforehand by other members. that's not the same thing. Does that make sense?
In a way, I mean, it's something I want to delve in a little bit deeper. So,
That's fine.
in professional sports, you might get a pre-match interview with a coach or with a player, and
Yeah.
particularly in America, you do get these kind of trash talking moments. You see it a lot in like UFC and stuff like that as well. Is where people try and get in each other's heads. You know, that's gamesmanship. It's part of the sport, and esport is still a sport, and people want to get inside each other's heads. People have said it on previous podcasts that Dewey's main strength is the fact that he's in your head and you think that you've lost before the game started.
Okay.
And you know, maybe that plays a part too. So for me, there's nothing wrong with putting easy in chat. There's nothing wrong with it.
Possibly.
I'm just trying to get in your head. I'm trying to provoke. I am trying to provoke a response. Now, if you turn around and react and say KYS from that, is that my fault or is it your fault? And then, for me, I think that's a very hard line to draw. So, for me, I think having this gamesmanship and trying to play this mental edge is part of sport. And I think if you try and cut that down because of, I don't know, a snowflake mentality of I can't take someone being better than me and talking about it, compared to, you know, when it gets too far. And I think that's what I mean by that initial question of is it going too far if someone says something relatively simple, relatively basic, just for the gamesmanship of it.
Well, okay, so to answer that, first off, if they do it in boxing and UFC, it's allowed because the entire purpose of that sport is to smash each other's face in, right?
Right.
That's the end product. Is you're paying to watch somebody punch someone else in the face. Whatever they say just adds fuel to the fire. That's why it's allowed in boxing and UFC. In less sports like football, for example, if you go out and literally make a comment like, "Oh, that player's so bad, he should kill himself," you just get banned and fined. It's inappropriate conduct. What's the word they use? Bringing the game into disrepute.
So
That's what that is.
That's going into the. I'm just talking about the. So say if he just said that player's bad, you know, they've got no chance of winning. You know, oh, we just played them and we absolutely smashed them. Can't believe they're even in the Premier League. Comments like that is the equivalent of saying easy.
But what difference is that then coming on your podcast and making the same comments about the team?
Well, that's the point. I'm arguing for it. I don't think there's a problem with it.
No, but what I'm saying is we don't punish that. We don't. That's going to be taken out of context straight away. That's going to be clipped. But we don't punish that hashtag. But it's a different thing where you're in the middle of the game, you type in all chat, which I appreciate. It's sort of like if you're in a football pitch and you might stamp on someone's toes or you might say something to them. But if you use foul or abusive language in football and the referee hears it, you get a card. I get what you're saying. It's those comments, but it's where you draw a line at an amateur league where people are giving up their time to play and enjoy it, and there's people who are trying to make those comments just to ruin it for them. And that's where you have to draw the line. And sadly, I'd love it if we had a league where we had 400 members of people who could have a little bit of laugh and a joke, not take it too seriously, but then have game faces on, go and play. And then there's none of the childish mentality that we have. However, the problem is somebody makes one comment out of context, not meaning to be offensive. Somebody reads it, responds, and then the next thing you know, just like in Twitch chat, you have a full-on argument where people are bringing personal insults and comments in that just aren't acceptable. And I appreciate the snowflake mentality thing where people say, "Oh, he just told him to shut up. Why are you then telling him to calm down?" But that shut up escalates into somebody saying X and Y and Z. And the only way to combat that is if you just get to the root and just say, "Look, if you can't speak to people, don't speak to people."
Okay.
And I don't know. It's a difficult position to be in, and we've had it in the past where I can pick Wavy. I think it's Wavy and Callie in general chat in VL will have a go at each other and say, "Oh, you're boosted," or "You're this," and they're friends, and that's why they're doing it. And when the other hand, there's a joke that got made about with Ike. One member of Ike saying it to another member of Ike, saying, "Oh, you're a paedophile," to do with Endeavour. It's an inside joke they have. It's nothing serious, no accusation or anything, but it's a joke they have about Endeavour. And I just DM'd Impress straight away. I was like, don't do those jokes in VL, because if it's taken out of context, God knows where it goes to. And it's that line that we have to walk, I'm afraid.
Okay. So let's go from the hypotheticals to some of the situations that have happened. So with the we'll go straight into the Dewey and Pickles Man case, just so people understand why. Because from my perspective, and I think it's something that Looney's mentioned, there's been a lack of full communication, open and honest communication from the admin team on the decisions, why the decisions are being made, and what the evidence is before it. Obviously, everyone's going to have an opinion, and we could get to a stage where there's complete outrest and huge arguments going on. So we'll start with Dewey.
Yeah, I think that's the easier one to deal with to start with.
Yeah, so explain the whole situation, because all I could remember seeing is Dewey's banned. What for? Not quite sure. Dewey said it's an okay ban now. As
he did.
if you can try and stop that.
He literally, in his credit, he literally, in general chat, straight away after we presented him what evidence we had, which I'll get to in a minute why we did that, straight away said, listen guys, stop arguing. I mean, I was in the wrong. I should be banned. He basically said those words. Which was ironic that 2 hours later people were still saying, oh, he shouldn't be banned. And he was saying he should have been. But we released that evidence based on the fact that, one, I think it already got leaked, as far as I'm aware. I was in the middle of a TTT game and somebody with voice went, oh, what about these bans then? I was like, what? Hello? And then I had Looney messaging me saying, your admins are shit, stop leaking stuff. I was like, none of the admins have leaked anything. So that had already got leaked. So we gave him the evidence on the word of, obviously everyone knows it was Rock now, that we could. How in normal circumstance, had Rock said, don't share this evidence because I don't want it to lead to X, Y, or Z, then we'd make that decision that we might not share it, which in some people's eyes would be deemed unfair. But then I suppose that's sort of what you sign up for a little bit, where you put a little bit of trust in us. As of yet, as far as I'm aware, we've not gone out and said this player can't play without a reason, which is obviously easy for me to say my stance, but all the evidence that we've ever had when we ban someone points to the fact that we should ban them. So to explain what actually happened, I'm sure most people actually know this now. At the start of the season, you have to do your placement games. You have to do your 8 or 10 games. I can never remember which one it is, because they changed it. Which gives you a starting elo, and then you win, and you get like 80, 90 elo per win at the start. And as you go on, you get less and less till you get your elo. You get placed in where you roughly should be, according to Riot. And what went round on Reddit was a loophole against this, so you could play as a Smurf, I suppose. You could go into low elo to stomp. And what happened is if you dodged those placement games, the placement game didn't count, but you got minus LP. So, 1 second. So you'd get, I don't know, minus 10 LP, for example, but then you could still play the placement game.
Okay.
So you'd get the usual dodge timer, so the 3 minutes, the 15 minutes, and then you just dodge again, and you get another minus 10 LP. But instead of having a system where it caps it, Riot allows it to go in minus numbers. And so the screenshots we got was like admission and screenshots of it being like minus 100, minus 50, minus whatever. And in that, there's an admission that he dodged over 50 placement games, which I don't know how much elo you get. There's no confirmation. If it's normal dodges, it's like, 3 and then 10. So if you take an average of that, that's like, 6.5, 7 LP over 2 kind of thing. So if you did it consecutively, you'd look at probably 400 or 500 LP, depending. Like, it's hard to fully gauge the number, but that's what went on. And that's obviously actively avoiding rank restrictions. We say you have to do this, and he went out his way to avoid doing that. Now, here's where it gets a little bit more complicated. So, Dewey claims that he should only have been banned for last split, because the dodging was for last split, and he did it to get gold 4 for last split. The argument that when we discussed was, well, it's a season thing. You've done it for the season. Your true elo wasn't represented for the season. And let's say, so in the screenshots that we got sent, Dewey said that he would have been gold 1 instead of the silver 1, and then he had to play a couple more games to get to gold 4 or whatever. So let's take it in that context. Let's say he was gold 1, which obviously is completely theoretical, and we can't say he's going to be gold 1, we can't say he's going to be gold 4 or anything. There's no number we can put on it. Let's say we took his word, he got gold 1. That's after 10 games. So he's got to play another 40 to play in this split. Let's say he has a half decent win rate, so 50% or something, he's gonna climb higher than plat 4. But that's theoretical, and you could use that as an argument that he was smurfing, which I don't think is fair, because Glenn will slaughter me for it, because we're still trying to discuss if we count that as smurfing or not. But technically didn't reach that elo, so would it be smurfing, or is it just deliberately sandbagging? And either way, it's against the rules. In the rules, I think it says the player should represent his true elo, his true level. So that's the argument, and that was basically what Drew was coming back with, that it should have been a blast split ban, which he'd already got kicked out for 9.1.1. Whatever the rule is these days.
The meme.
Just the one. What was it? The Endeavour rule, I think it was called, or something.
Yeah.
It was a meme. And that was the plat rule, wasn't it? Or the jury. It was just a jury rule that people use.
I think it was the Endeavour rule, because Endeavour was going to play on CNT way back when, and then that rule got introduced, and then rest in peace Endeavour CNT. But there you go.
But that's why, like, the open and honest answer as to why Dewey got banned was he actively dodged over 50 placement games in order to play this season.
So really briefly before we move on to Pickles Man.
Yeah.
I don't know all the information that you know about the case, so how would you be your own devil's advocate to the decision? Even if
How would you mean?
So the admins have now made a decision on him being banned. What would be, based off the evidence that's there, what would be the best argument for him to be able to play?
Well, that's a slippery slope, isn't it? Because people seem to think that I just make these decisions on my own.
No, I know.
It's not vote, but from my point of view, what I would have argued is it's this season. He didn't reach that elo. Should he be allowed next season? However, we can possibly monitor these dodges not happening. Now, Glenn's got plans to put things in place to avoid this. Apparently, he's been in contact with Riot that we can track some of this stuff now. So it's not a problem me releasing that, even though it's public knowledge anyway. But if there's another loophole, how do we know, kind of thing.
Yeah. Okay.
But that's what my argument would be that if we're saying it's this season that he's actively avoided, then his appeal should be aimed towards next season, which would be, January, kind of looking at.
Okay, that's fair. So let's move on to this Pickles Man case. So I was in a call with the WSL boys at the time, and before the ban came out, Silverback was like, "Do you know that top laner for SCS is Agrita, by the way?" I was like, "What, really?" I kind of put two and two together, and it seemed quite likely. And then next thing I know, after the Dewey ban, Pickles Man comes a couple of minutes later. Now, it was banned for smurfing, wasn't it? Or it wasn't even technically smurfing, wasn't it? Like two things. I can't remember exactly what the ban was for.
Okay. So some of this stuff, I'll be tight-lipped about. I can't, I don't want to release it because I haven't had permission to release it by the people that have submitted it. Now, that's not like really generic stuff. That's things that would incriminate that person. A bit like me having to release the DM that Rock sent or Dewey sent to Rock. Like, the person that had possibly have this information.
Okay.
So we got some evidence that would suggest that Pickles Man is Agrita. The reason why quite a few people knew about it before it happened was we needed some opinions of people that knew or could use this evidence in a certain way. So that alone points to the ban evading part. So the reason we used, I think Glenn wrote it, was ban evading. I think I wrote it actually. Ban evading and then potential bot account / smurfing / shared account. There's like a multiple reason that we could use.
Yeah.
So here's some of the stuff that we've given Pickles Man in terms of our argument. So the Discord account was created 1 minute before it joined VL. So straight away, that's questionable.
Red flag.
Yeah. Flash key changes, which a lot of people in the community already know that we track. We have bot that runs straight away for it and checks it. That trigger and show that there's over a threshold. Long breaks in play, which would indicate either a second account or bot account, which also the flash key would indicate. What else were there? So there's no other record online about his name. So for example, I'm fairly sure if I search Trigger, I'd come up with a couple of things like YouTube or Steam or something.
Okay. Yeah.
There's none of that, and there's also, if you search his name up, you can potentially find links to Agrataf via real names as well. There's that somewhere in there that I remember seeing ages ago. So the question we have to ask is, if we take the Agrataf situation out completely, right, with everything else that I just named, how likely is it that that's a legitimate player? And if the answer is really questionable, then for the betterment of the league, we have to say that person can't play. Now, people seem to forget that in the rules, it literally says if an admin says they can't play, they can't. So, admin bias law you want, that is in the rules that everyone signs up for. But on top of that, when you get to a level that conclusive, even if everything that they can submit points completely opposite. So, for example, if they say, "Oh, I made my Discord account because of this, and then this and this," and everything could on its own work, when you have such a substantial amount of evidence pointing towards it being questionable, I think it's just logical to act in that sense.
Yeah. So when you've got, I'm echoing on your computer. If there's a chance you can try and fix that at all. But when you've got, say, 20 answers which obviously point to one direction with that information, they can quite easily fill in the blanks to make it swing in another way. That's fair enough and quite easy to do. And I think that's fair. Not needing concrete evidence to still make the bans important, but as long as you've got enough evidence to make sure
Yeah,
that it's obvious. It's like you can quite often see it in court cases where they know this guy's the guilty party, but they can't put him down because they've not got like concrete evidence, so they end up
yeah.
needing a confession or something. Whereas we've got the ability to just say, "Nah, mate, fuck off." And in a way, that does kind of bring me into another point, and it lightly goes to what you were saying earlier. What's the goal for VL? Where do you actually see it going? And the best way to start the question is, how do you want VL to be right now in terms of production value, in terms of community, in terms of everything? What's your dream VL? And
What is in end game VL?
in a way, yeah, both end game and current, just kind of
Oh, so
together.
current.
Yeah.
We're making changes now. We start the split. We started doing it, and we're sort of trying to get towards the VL that we want. At the minute, I'd probably say 80% ish, roughly. We're working on it. I had a really interesting conversation in the CR chat the other day, CR leaks, with Ice and Valt were just saying, like, giving their opinions on whether this split's better than last. Valt was saying, oh, he thinks it's much better, but I said some things are, some things aren't, and I agree with Ice that I fully agree, and I was the first one to hold my hands up that say that we did some of this stuff this split worse than last. Like, there are things that we have done shit. 100%,
Silver
brutally
Gold
honest.
has 5.5 teams, which I suppose isn't.
Yeah, so not advertising. We thought we'd have just enough numbers. So the ideal numbers that we had were between 8 and 10 for both leagues, and we thought we'd have roughly about that. We put out a little survey before sign-ups. We got roughly around them numbers, and so we were like, okay, we don't want to advertise because we don't want to oversubscribe 2 leagues that we don't know the formats are going to work. We don't know if the split leagues are going to work. We don't want to have 20 teams in both leagues that we can't provide a suitable league. So the idea was to not advertise, to have 8 and 8 or 10 and 10 or whatever, and have it where we can get rid of the cup, because we personally felt that the cup didn't really work. It kind of intervened with the league. It broke it up a little bit. It's a really nice idea. Just, I don't know if it was executed poorly or if the split was too long. For whatever reason, it just didn't seem to work. And it's something that might come back, might not, we don't know. But we just wanted to have a little bit of a split where we had our current teams, we had our current membership with a few additions, friends, and a few stragglers that pop up every now and again, but so that we can really cement the foundations down. Like, the plan this split is, and still is, to implement things that for long term should better VL.
So what is that? What is a better VL?
Yeah, so you've seen that the announcement on Sunday night was the staff thing. So we want to bring in a more fluid system, I suppose. So one of the things that was really apparent is if 1 or 2 admins go away, it leaves a hell of a lot of work, especially if in the peak times, for the other admins to pick up. For example, if Travis goes on holiday, we're pretty screwed with the streaming stuff. Like, Caparo can probably do it if he's free, but he also has some stuff that sometimes he can't. Similarly, like if me or Glenn go away and we're trying to do the tournament stuff, other people struggle, and we all have our own sections that we deal with in that kind of sense. And so, with the introduction of staff, we wanted to, without having set roles yet, we're still negotiating these roles. If people have a really good suggestion for a staff role, we'll consider it and probably take it on. But to have, so this work is a bit more spread. For example, we're going to take on people to do roster lock stuff. So they can check see if roster locks have gone in. So you'll see me, Dave, you've definitely seen me like go in there and put one game ban or one game ban for this game or whatever because roster's late or incorrect submission. But that relies on me being around every Saturday, every Tuesday, checking those things at like 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock, which obviously I've got no live because I've been around doing it. But it allows that to happen. If you want to do a transfer, then we'll have people that can go to tournament, add them on, so you're not waiting 1 or 2 days while, especially now I'm back at work, sorting that out. We've got now a game day assistant, so they'll be around because he plays on Silver Gold, Ice. He'll be around answering questions, being able to apply roles so it's not super last minute and you're not worried. Any issues, he can be there as like a front force while still being a player. One of the biggest things that we had last split was, oh, we'll have admins and mods, but you can't be a player or an owner, and it put people off.
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of people in this community that want to do a lot of good for it, and you see that in the content, you see that in the casters where they can still play, but the reason why they're here is to coach or play, and it's not to do the donkey work that I seem to like. And so that already getting put in place makes it a more wholesome place. We've recruited a socials manager or a Twitter manager. We haven't really given it a proper title yet, so that'll be more active. So that's looking with a view to where if we have a good Twitter following and we have a good outreach, we get a good amount of impressions weekly. They're the sort of numbers that we can use. As I said, we speak to sponsors. We try and get sponsorships where we can go and say in a meeting or in a voice call, whatever we do, look, here are impressions for this month, the X amount. We want your sponsorship. We want, I don't know, £100, and we'll use your logo. We'll spot all your sponsorship stuff on stream, in between games. We'll regularly reference it. But that £100 goes to £80 prize money, £20 for server stuff. And then all of a sudden, what you have is a league that people want to win. You have people coming in to join it because there's prize pools. And you look at last split, the growth, when we've got the right prize funding, that you have a good amount of growth. So realistically, by the end of this split, that's kind of the position we want to be in. Now, there's some things I can't say. Definitely things happening Christmas time and in December. I think that's the date we're probably going to look to use. I think I can already see Glenn typing the DM as I say it. But yeah, so around Christmas time, there's going to be some pretty big and exciting changes in terms of some stuff that probably doesn't really affect day-to-day players, but in terms of the VL as a whole, should be really positive. So in terms of endgame VL, I mean, it's probably the same as any amateur league, really, that we'd want leagues from like bronze all the way up to your masters, and obviously there'll be staggered prizes throughout that, but it's quite easy to get into partnership with like the competitive scene in the UK, for example. So there's a lot of leagues that feed into the championship series of League of Legends in the UK, and they then obviously partner with the LEC. And I'm not saying we're going to be partner with the LEC; that's going to be taken wildly out of context. But we want to be at a position where, a bit like when Compete League used to get spoken about in the realms of esports, where, oh, you guys have been in Compete League, oh, you'll know Doctor, you'll know this person, you'll know that person, and we want to be in a position where we can offer that. Now, obviously, we're quite far away. That we haven't got a Plat Diamond or a Diamond Master League or anything, and they're certainly not in the plans for next split. But, well, if people continue to grow, like they seem to have done from silver to gold, it'll be a league that we'll have to offer very shortly anyway. And I suppose, if nothing else, and people will probably laugh at this, but if nothing else, it shows that using this amateur league and the platform we've given players, that people have individually improved, that they can take out what they've learned in fives and go to solo queue and improve. And so one of the things that really interested me in the interview that Bauer did on the Nexus magazine, go read it now, was one of the questions was, what we're going to do about recruiting bronze silver? Do we think we're going to run out? And I don't think so. The core player base of League of Legends is like silver gold, and then they're going to have friends that are lower, they're going to have friends that are higher, whatever. And if you can bring through, with advertising that we saw, just a couple of Reddit posts, like 5 to 10 people every Reddit post, then you're already getting numbers that's like 2 teams. And then if they have a few friends that they bring with them, that's 3 teams or 4 teams, and you start growing this kind of league again. I have no worries that next split will have much more healthier numbers. However, I sort of enjoy the numbers that we've got this split as well. I think the best of 3 have been hugely successful, and I know yourself, you much prefer the best of 3 series.
Yeah.
And so we make it work, and we'll continue to make anything work that we can, because, and I say this quite often, especially in announcement stuff, it's you guys that we do it for. It's you guys that turn up and play. If you want to go in general chat and flame me all day long, as long as you turn up and play on the Thursday or the Monday, I care less, if I'm honest. As long as you're not doing it wildly, like, abusively, I just don't mind.
The regular
Lose it
WWE
weekly.
heel.
So, that's the point. Like, if you turn up, you play, that's our league. You guys are literally like our heart, our beating heart of the league.
So the thing that I think a lot of people have enjoyed this split so far, because they can tell it's going to be a lot shorter. I don't think anyone liked. I think because it was
No.
Shell 1, Shell 2, then the League and Hex Tech Cup intertwined, it felt like
Yeah.
a huge season-long event.
It was just like a Goliath, wasn't it?
Yes, I think people are preferring this is just going to be, your 9 weeks, whatever it is. But people are also now recognizing that it's now going to be, 3-4 months until next season in the next split. For a lot of people, that's going to be too long. So
yeah.
Is there a plan for the winter split? Is there something going to be in place there? Because I think everyone's going to want something.
It won't be an official winter split. I think the time period. So we've estimated that we finish mid-October, right? So playoffs and everything else that we'll have it'll be mid-October. Realistically, the turnaround between splits, you need a bit of time to let teams form, do registration and whatnot. So you're talking like start of December, mid-December, the shortest real time to start that league off. Is there enough time over Christmas as well, from mid-December or start of December, to basically the end of January to do a split that's going to be meaningful and done properly? So what we then talked about, other than that, was, well, what about if we have tournaments? So, for example, I think if there was just one Shell tournament, and then like maybe a fun tournament that wasn't another Shell tournament, I think that would have been enough. I think that would have led nicely into the season. I think a lot of people burnt out on the second Shell, if I'm remembering correctly. It's a bit while ago. So the plan is, and we have, with the staff role, just recruited 2, I believe they both accepted, 2 events managers. So they're going to work together to look to put these events on. I know that Cradden was really interested in doing some of his kind of tournaments that he does, which a lot of people will be interested in, I'm fairly sure, because draft racing and bronze bravery and whatnot, really, really good. And one of the things that I'd like to see is we could make like an ARAM tournament where you could form teams and then you go and play ARAM and you have to deal with the picks you get. Kind of takes away the meta side of things. And I think that kind of thing in between summer and spring is what we officially called them, but in between like November to January, especially when it's over the Christmas period when everyone's usually a lot more happier, I suppose, that'll hopefully grow a community a lot better, because you're not worried about this player's a sandbagger, this player's a smurf. You're just like, oh, we'll go play ARAM and I'll play full AP Rakan.
That's just when Endeavor's a tryhard. That's what I come up then.
And Devil and trying to pick his Trundle or whatever he picks.
That's fair. it's going to be a hotly debated one. I think of what people want. Some people are going to want a split in that time. Some people will think whatever they'll think. So we'll see what we get.
I'll put it on record. If people truly want a split over the winter period, and they don't care if it's like a 4 or 5 weeks, bearing in mind we have to have playoffs at the end of it or whatever. So realistically, like 3 or 4 game weeks, that's it. If that's what people really want, and they're going to form teams and whatnot, then I'm sure that that's what we'd have to go with, because we're not here to not provide for the community that's providing for us, I suppose. But you'll also have to bear in mind that things like streams probably couldn't happen because, like, it's over Christmas, people have to be with families. There's going to be rearrangements that will just end up with double FFs or single FFs. It's just going to be a lot of things that you'll have to then accept. That'll be it. But I'm happy to try and put it together if that's what people want.
Okay. So I think one of the final topics I'm going to get to, which I think is they're going to want me to talk about it, even though I really don't want to. But the situation with me and me getting unbanned and the huge meme that has ensued. So, I mean, the funniest one is Agwita saying that, wait, why is Trigger not allowed to play and I'm not? I'd never do that. Wink, wink. So, from my perspective now, realistically, I'd have loved to have just leaked the ticket and for everyone to know it, to just know what was said, just so that people could understand. Queez, I suppose, is one of the only people who's no longer an admin/mod who was at the time, who can kind of understand, and even then, he's still kind of on the bank of, I still think he shouldn't have been able to play. So it was a permanent ban for attempted smurfing, which was then just completely removed with obviously the punishment for doing this kind of shit. From your guys' perspective, what made you make the decision to not only remove the permanency of it, but remove it altogether and add this kind of stipulation? Because I'd assume that, say, if it was an Agwita in my situation who had done exactly had I done, you wouldn't be asking him to do content because he's not had a Let It Rip podcast kind of thing.
I would disagree.
Okay.
What people are not realizing is the community service thing been around for quite a long time. All the way back to like me and Quee had a little bust up, and then Quee left the Discord for a long time. That my ban was shortened on the basis that I did a lot of community service, a lot of donkey work, a lot of spreadsheety stuff. And just because obviously that's not in the public eye, that's not disregarded. I still had to put in like hours and hours, the equivalent of what you put in for the podcast, for example. And community service has been a thing for a long time. I think Rock had to do community service on streams. He had to cast and stuff when like he had to literally take time off work to do it. But he had to cast in order to get his sentence lowered, I suppose, is the best way to put it. I don't know how much I want to say, Dave, if I'm honest. Should I just be brutally honest and leak it all?
Yeah, I don't think there's anything to avoid on my side. So
no, it's not. So I don't know. Right. So I told you earlier on, admin decisions are based on 5 people. At the time, I was on holiday when your appeal came in, sunning it up, sending you Snapchats daily, as you remember. That was a good time. And so your appeal came through as I was on holiday. And so what usually happens when an appeal comes through or something happens is we have a quick discussion in the admin room, depending on how big or whatever it is or how juicy it is, I suppose. We debate longer and discuss longer, and we offer opinions, and we'll try and disagree with each other, try and provoke another discussion kind of thing. So if Glenn says, "Oh, this should happen," I might chip in and say, "Yeah, but what if this?"
Yeah.
Just to try and play devil's advocate with it.
Explore all options, yeah.
Yeah, and as your appeal came in, I was on holiday at the time, as I said, and they were discussing it, and I can't remember the exact ins and outs, but it got around to the idea of, well, what about if we do a case by case thing? And it's what I wrote up. Everything I wrote up is completely honest and true. So it was like a case by case thing. People have been asking for it a long time. What if we trial it here? If it's met with a positive response, we can run with it. We can try and do it a little bit more like that. And so then it was like, okay, so what possibility-wise, if we do allow this, where do we go? And so they started talking about it. That's about the time where I then looked at my phone. I was like, after several vodka cokes on the beach, was like, what, we're just going to let him off? And then I was like, I literally remember sitting there like going, nah. And then the more I read it, I was like, okay, well, these guys clearly wanting to go this way. Sorry, my dog's like in there. So, okay, but we can't just let him off. So what else have we done in the past? Well, there's been community service. That's what passed. And I know for a fact that was my idea, and I put it in there. I was like, I don't like the idea of just letting you play and no punishment. The minimum we need to do is put community service in place, with a caveat of, if you don't follow community service, if you're not doing content, if you're not behaving in the Discord, we'll just reban you instantly. And you yourself know, I've told you in DMs that you basically skirted that line a few times now. But not all your fault. I must defend you that I think people do try and bait you into these arguments.
I just look at sports chat, it's fucking ridiculous.
It's usually me, to be fair. I'll get on with sports chat, and halfway through I'm like, wait, am I the reason Dave's going to get banned? So yeah, the community service thing was completely my idea. And then that was my contribution to discussion. I left, my girlfriend dragged me out, went to the casino and stuff. And then I came back and there was a vote up, and there's like 3 votes already on it. And there's 5 admins, so 3 votes basically says that that's the majority, I suppose.
Yeah.
We all still wait. We wait till all the votes go in, because if it's a really split decision, I'd imagine we still discuss it. But I came back and it was like 3 votes for 0 in the favour of letting you do it with community service.
Okay.
And I'll be totally honest, Dave, and I think I might have told you this in private. I don't agree with you being unbanned. I think it's a failed experiment that you did bad, and you've been punished in terms of having to do things, but not as punished as you probably should have been. And that's not to say that we're just going to take it away from you, because that's us messing up. Now, I think it'd been slightly different if you were caught smurfing the Silver Gold League and we just let you play in the Silver Gold League with community service. I think that's a slightly different topic completely.
Oh, of course,
but,
yeah. Gold too.
So it's a different argument, but I personally don't agree with it, and I found it really difficult to I wrote for the Nexus magazine about it, and I found it really difficult because I felt like I was justifying the arguments that the others had put forward. But then I looked at it and I was like, well, we're a team, and if I'm not defending my team, then I'm doing it wrong. And so, regardless whether I disagree with it or not, the majority voted for it, so therefore I'm agreeing with that team. And if I didn't like that, then I shouldn't be on the admin team, because I'm not respecting other people's opinions on it.
No, that's fair. That's fair.
And I think it is fair to say, and I think anyone will hold their hands up with it, that the case-by-case thing clearly bombed. People didn't like it, and it's why we've sort of moved away from doing it now. And as I said, in the initial announcement, it was a trial case-by-case. It wasn't Gush with friends on the admin team. I think admins, I'm probably your closest friend, and I'm the one that always warns you, bait you in sports chat, said that you should be banned. I'm probably the harshest one on there with you. Obviously, people will take it their own way, but that's the ins and outs. And I don't know if I'm allowed to say that. We'll see when Hyper puts me on probation, I suppose, and I have to do content. But the people that are saying, if it was someone else in your situation, I mean, all you did, and I think it's really unfair the flack you're getting, is all you did was you just said, can I be unbanned? What can I do to be unbanned? What's my chances? That kind of thing. Obviously, they're a bit more fleshed out than that, but you just put your argument forward, your appeal, what you want.
That is the main thing. I think for me, when I brought forward the ticket, it wasn't let me play. It was, is there anything? Can I put forward an appeal to remove the permanency of it? I think that was the main thing for me. I'd realised I'd fucked up, but to never get to play ever again was like, oh shit. So that obviously, there's loads of people have loads of opinions. I think that's fair enough. Obviously, you being someone who voted against it makes this conversation really kind of one-sided anyway. So it's
no, because I will defend that decision. I'll defend that decision to the hill. As a team, we voted for it. There's a discussion. I contributed to that discussion. If I really wanted you not to play, I'm fairly sure other people would have respected that. If I'd have gone in and said, totally out of order, you shouldn't play, so I'm just as much to blame. I'm not trying to say it's anyone else's fault. I'm not deflecting.
Yeah.
I'm part of that team, and if I really disagreed with it or whatever, I could have resigned or anything else. So please don't ever think that I'm just trying to cop out by saying I didn't
No,
agree with
no,
it.
no, no, no. It's not what I'm saying. It was more because it's not because it was a committee's opinion that was put forward. It's not like I
Yeah,
can ask your opinion because you're not a committee. You're an individual representing.
yeah, yeah.
But it does bring me on to a different point. Hopefully, people are content with, no pun intended, content content with that
They won't be.
kind of
I
answer.
guarantee
They
they
won't
won't
be.
be.
It'll only spark more debate, to be honest.
Yeah, obviously.
Ban him for this split. Let him play next split. The another thing that's been, I think, quite commonly spoken about is how is the admin team set up. So, I mean, you've got Hyper as being the kind of head admin stroke owner, then you, Glenn, Travis, Dragonfire, and am I forgetting anybody else?
Nope. Top
That
5.
that's the 5.
Unless I'm forgetting someone, then that's really awkward.
Quickly check that's hard. No, is Hyper doing enough as an owner? Now, I know it's going to be incredibly hard for you to say no, but we very rarely see him in general chat. None of the announcements come from Hyper. It doesn't seem like he has done anything since becoming an owner, aside from maybe a couple of posts at the very start. Does he actually do a lot behind the scenes? Now, I know you're going to be on his side, but given a truthful, is he carrying the weight of the load? Is it an even split, or is he carrying less than the average? I suppose is the first question.
I mean, as I said, that is a really difficult question to answer, as you can imagine. Because then you bring the argument in is streaming as much of a job or is it more of a job than what I do in terms of like the tournament side of stuff, organizing rosters and whatnot?
Activity, I suppose, then is a easiest way
Yeah,
to start.
but then you could argue like Glenn's not super active in the chat.
Oh, I mean
But
in the admin chat.
oh yeah, literally everyone contributes in the admin chat.
Okay.
There's like even if it's just like if you're really busy and the only thing you can do is just literally put yeah I agree. Like there's still the fact that people contribute in there. It's difficult in that regard in terms of Hyper because there's a lot of pressure on him. If everything goes like tits up and everything breaks and everyone hates everyone, it falls on his shoulders. That's just the be all end all. And you might say it's the admin team, but realistically, if I wanted a cop out, I'd say Hyper's the owner, go and blame him, and you wouldn't really have much of a retort for it. So you shoulder a lot of that responsibility. Now, when I'm doing what I'm doing, if he doesn't like that, it's his job is part of it is saying, well, you're doing that wrong. And you guys wouldn't see that.
Yeah.
And like maybe other admins don't see that he might message Trav and say, do this on the stream instead. But that's part of his job. And so if you break it up, so at the minute Pyro's still settling in the admin team, it's been a while. He's taking over in terms of when we do the staff roles. He's going to be like lead of the content every side of things, so people report through him. Trav does streaming. Pyro also does a lot of like jobs behind the scenes. For example, when we did the adding people onto the rosters and stuff, he did all the roles. People think I seem to have done it. I was just creating the roles, and then he was adding them in the ticket. But because I was creating them and asking for colours and stuff, people presumed it was me. No, all him. I did about 10% of them. I made all the roles. He did about 90% of adding them. So Trav has all the streaming side of things, and then he has a lot to do with the F1. As we saw the announcements that went out, I think yesterday with Flyer winning it.
Yeah.
I do. Glenn always says that I'm like the front of house. I'm the one that everyone seems to see more. I do all the announcements. I'm doing all the roster stuff. But that's just kind of the nature of the job I'm doing, I suppose. I mean, I don't want to ever do myself down and say that I'm not doing anything, but I'm not really the type of person to say I've done all this. Give me credit. I'm better. Let me be owner. I think that's what the comments last week were literally Looney saying, "When's Joyce going to be owner?" and Quee was saying, "Isn't he already?"
Well, yeah, because
Like,
that as you
yeah,
say, you take that front of house role so everyone sees you more than everybody else, and I think a lot of the community will kind of be on the same wavelength of, well, yeah, Travis does a lot. He does the stream, never does
yeah,
anything wrong, never does any controversial decisions, just always really solid. Glenn, I suppose, like he doesn't really do a lot, but like all the cool stuff is added to the server is like really useful. Like the voice channel alone is like dead cool. I imagine
yeah.
he does other stuff. And then with Dragonfire, it's like, well, he's new. I've not seen him do anything. I suppose he does nerf this, but who knows? Again,
Yeah.
similar to Travis, doesn't say anything too controversial. And you've got Hyper, who, well, is he still on holiday? What's going on? So I imagine most people will have that same opinion unless there's been specific dealings with specific admins. So yeah, I imagine that's where those comments come from.
I don't think anyone in the admin team will have an argument as to why they're getting said. Like, I don't think anyone gets offended by it because, like I say, it's the nature of the job. I think the person that spends the most time in terms of VL stuff is probably Glenn, if I'm honest. In hours alone, I think he's probably in 200-300 hours of bot coding alone, probably more actually. Like a simple feature, for example, like the voice channel thing, might take him 10 hours to code, and he'll go and do it over a week and code it out, and you never see that side. Like, all the back end stuff that we have, you just don't ever see it.
Yeah.
Like the stuff coming soon where there'll be integration where you verify your league account to your Discord account, and it just pulls it all through. It automatically assigns you a target, automatically assigns you a role. Your tournament gets updated. Everything just automatically does it. But you'll never see that side of things. You don't understand the amount of time that goes into it. And like you say, obviously it's easy to see how many hours Trav does because he's on stream. It's literally 3 hours 30 minutes of a stream, and you can see that he's done that. And anyone that asks ticket stuff, and it's like 90% of them I'm answering or whatever, you can see I'm doing it. And I think that's where people get a little bit, I don't know. People are obviously going to make their own opinions about admins and who does the most. And no matter what I say here, no matter what I've said in general before, it'll never change. That'll always be the case. What I will say is when I applied to be owner a long time ago, I made it very clear that I wouldn't have a owner role. I'd have preferred split, but different visions, different things. I remember saying to Impress when he first joined for about a month, saying that it's just like a vanity thing. What does it actually give him? And he's like, well, nothing. I was like, yeah, exactly. It's the title, isn't it? So I don't know. People have their own opinions.
That's fair. So we'll try and keep this one to an hour. So I've got one last question for you.
Yeah.
Why on earth are you an admin?
God. First off, can I just say I talk pure shite, don't I? Like, I just thought about how much I've just talked in the last hour, and it's fucking shite. So why am I an admin? I'll tell you what. I thought about this question a week and a half ago, so maybe 2 weeks ago actually. When Bauer did that interview with Glenn, the last question was future plans, and it was like Glenn's answer or something like, "He really wants to play again, but I don't think a team could take him and whatnot." And I think back to when I played, whatever, how many months ago it is now, like 8 months or something, 6 months.
Yeah.
And I couldn't think of anything worse for me personally. All that, like playing, I got not anxiety, I suppose, but like the nerves, the feeling that everyone relies on me to do things. If things didn't go well, and it was well documented on PEX that things didn't go well, I shouldered a lot of that blame, especially being a gold spot in of the two. And I know Mike felt the same in some of that regard as well. And then I look at the admin side of things and I think, what am I doing? Well, people rely on me, but I'm doing the job. Like all the tournament stuff gets updated and whatnot. Everything else I do, trying to get all this stuff organized, that'll all get done. And I realized when I thought about it, I just really like doing the admin stuff. I like the dirty, awful jobs. I mean, don't get me wrong, it's really nice when somebody, like Laudio, for example, will just send you a DM out of nowhere, just to let you know, I think what you're doing is really good. Or I think, yeah, I'm really happy about the admin team handled this, because you don't see that side of things. Like you obviously see the people that kick off and say, oh, this and this and this, I can see this or whatever. But you'll never really get the people. You don't get 1 out of 10 where they'll go, yeah, I agree with this.
Yeah, I mean the minority is always louder than the majority in most cases, isn't it? So.
But it's when you get those messages, and I remember screenshotting saying, just let you know that I'm really happy with how the admin team are handling this split. And he's like, I screenshotted that and I sent it in the admin room and I just pinned it. I was like, if you're ever in doubt, just remember this quote. And he's like, those little things make it worth it. And I must admit, it really, really does make a difference. But I do just enjoy the awful, dirty jobs, I suppose. Like, I teach computer science. I'm literally like torturing myself daily. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
so spreadsheets are my forte. I do trackers. I know how to do every single kind of like formula there is or any function spreadsheet. I'm literally spreadsheet whiz, and I just like doing them. I like making them look nice or making them look functional.
Very much
Traditional formatting.
the Vince McMahon of WWE, doing all the
Yeah,
fucking
100%.
nitty gritty. You've got to do all the fucking graft, and then everyone hates you by the end of it anyway.
100%. Yeah. But I don't know. It made me giggle. So I just still remember seeing Ludi's power ranking, and I don't get hung up on power rankings. I never did. I remember when I was in PEX, I CT, I was like, fucking hell, it's higher than I thought. Like, and Looney's, it was like joint bottom or something, and I was like, nice. So Quee, who literally admits that when he was admin for the 3 days or whatever he said it was, he didn't do anything, was passive aggressive, and then quit. Got higher than me, and I was like, yes.
You've
I'm
done it.
hated. I love it.
You've done it.
Like the way I see that is if I'm hated, I'm clearly doing something right for someone to hate me. I suppose, in some sense, where if there's people in the community that will say, "Good job," people that hate me, that must mean that I'm banning people that they disagree with being banned. And like I say, that's probably a warped view of it.
Yeah, really,
But,
because you know this
well, let
very
me frame it a
very
different way. If
very.
Looney hates me, I'm probably doing something right.
Yeah, maybe that's more. Maybe that's more to it. That's fair enough.
But no.
We will call it the end of the podcast, but I'll give you one last chance to say anything else that you want to say. Any kind of last ditch not announcements that you love to do to the community, but this time with your mug in it.
Oh, do you know what? I could do a little bit of a leak.
Go
Not a
on.
leak. So for people that are wondering that I mentioned earlier, the December thing, if you go and look at the Nexus magazine hard enough, you'll find some sort of clue slash pointer to what's actually going to happen.
There we go, ladies and gentlemen. Go check out that Nexus magazine.
I would like to end it on one last thing though, Dave.
Go on.
Just remember, third best player in the league.
First best now, Endeavour and Dewey aren't playing.
First best in the league.
Yeah. And then I got dropped by by my team. Well,
WSL.
that's another story for another podcast. But we'll end it here, Joycey. It's been a good one. No doubt there'll be messages in general or DMs afterwards, but hopefully that gives people a groundwork to ask you more questions and get further insight. Hopefully you've enjoyed it yourself. Hopefully people watching have enjoyed it. If you have, do leave a like and a comment of if you want it to be different or if you liked it this way. Again, none of you fucking do it anyway, but
Can I just add on that note? Everyone seems to complain about this and that about the podcast and then never say it to you. Like, just comments in general that you're never going to see. Just leave it on the video. Like, see it.
that would be good. Right, that is it. It's been Joycey. It's been X Trigger. Over and out. Peace.